Okay, so I found a way to remember literally everything I read, and in this video I want to show you how I do it and how you guys can do the same. So over the last few years I've read hundreds of books, I've listened to a bunch of podcasts, and I've consumed a whole ton of different information online. But the truth is I can recall about 1% of it, if that. It genuinely pains me to think about all those brilliant ideas that I may have had but I've now just forgotten, or all that really useful advice I just haven't taken action on, or even like all the stuff that I've learned over the last few years and I've now just got no memory of it whatsoever. Like, it's super frustrating. Like, just imagine how great our life would be if we could tap into our full potential, recall everything we learn, and organize our life for maximum clarity, productivity, and insight. You know, this sounds way too good to be true, but I think I found a way. It's called a second brain. The idea is that our brain can only store a few pieces of information in our head at any one time, and we're just not designed to keep all of these thoughts in our head. Basically, our brain is designed for having ideas and not for holding them. So we need some sort of system to outsource, organize, and manage all this information. Otherwise, we're just going to forget it. And this system is called the second brain. In short, it's a way of freeing up our brain's resources by storing all of our notes, ideas, insights, and inspirations all into one external digital brain that we can refer back to and build upon whenever we like. So every brilliant thought we've had, every life-changing fact that we've stumbled across, or every inspiring piece of content that we've seen is all stored in this one place forever. It's honestly an absolute game changer, and I wish I'd known about it years ago. So if you're someone that wants to have better ideas, be more productive, and basically reduce your mental stress in every way possible, then I highly recommend you start building your very own second brain. So let me show you how to do it. Right, the 4 key steps in building a second brain is the CODE method, which stands for capture, organize, distill, and express. And this is what we're going to use to help manage and make sense of all the information that we come across on a daily basis. But before we do that, we need to make sure we have some sort of app to begin building our second brain in. Now, I've literally tried every single app out there to build my second brain, from Notion to Obsidian and beyond, and I can honestly tell you that it really does not matter what app you choose. In fact, I've now settled on a super simple solution and use Apple Notes for my entire second brain. I personally really like Apple Notes because it's so simple and clean to use. Like, it's really easy to add a new note, I can access those notes on any device, and there's just like zero faff with it. But if you find some other app that you'd rather use than Apple Notes, then that's absolutely fine. Building a second brain will still work. Just don't overthink it. If you do eventually decide that Notion is your go-to app for your second brain, then make sure you check out the description below, because there I've got a free template that you can use to begin building your second brain. Okay, so now we've got our app, let's now dive into the CODE method. Firstly, we've got capture. Basically, our mind has a very limited working memory, and we can't store all our best ideas and process all the new information we come across every single day. So we need a way to offload that information and capture it elsewhere, so that we can reduce the mental stress and fatigue that we feel from having it all clogged up in our minds. The other great benefit of capturing all our thoughts and ideas is something known as borrowed creativity. And the idea here is that there are basically no new ideas in the world, and all great creative output is a result of great creative input. So whenever we see someone having a great idea or doing great things, it's usually the end result of having stored, collected, and managed and basically connected the ideas of other people. If you're not too sure what information you should be capturing, the key really is to capture information that resonates with you. So that could be something you read, it could be an interesting quote, it could be a conversation you had with a friend, it could be an idea that popped into your head. Whatever it is, if it resonates with you, you should be writing it down. If you're struggling to find stuff that resonates with you, then I highly recommend doing something that I call improving your information diet. And all this really means is surrounding yourself with great people and great thoughts. So if you're on Twitter, make sure you're following good people. If you're reading a book, make sure you're reading from good authors. Or if you have a friendship group, make sure they're people that are helping you to level up and become a better person. Then whenever I'm ready to capture something, whether I'm on my phone or on my laptop, I'll open up a new Apple Note and just begin scribbling that thought or that idea or that quote or whatever it is down on the page. It doesn't matter how messy it is, I'm just concerned about getting that thought on the page. Now, there are some occasions where I can actually automate this process of capturing the information or the thoughts that I need, and I'm going to show you 2 or 3 of them now. So one way that I quite like to do this is that if I'm ever reading a book on my iPad, I can just make notes and highlight relevant passages within the book itself on iBooks. And then when I finish reading the book, I can simply share all those quotes and all those notes directly to my email, where I can then copy and paste all of those notes directly into Apple Notes. Or if I'm on Twitter and I find a really interesting tweet that I like, I don't have to manually type that out. Instead, I can just hit share, and I can share that tweet directly into Apple Notes. Or if I'm just browsing the internet and find an article that I like, I can share that article directly into Apple Notes, and I can leave some thoughts in Apple Notes alongside that article, or I can just leave it there and read the article later when I have some more time. To be honest, you'll probably find some sort of capture process that works best for you. Like, there are some apps out there that have far better integrations, so if you're using something like Readwise, you can integrate your Kindle highlights directly into Notion, but if you're just starting out, I highly recommend just keeping it quite simple. Right, so now we've captured some of our notes, it's now time to begin organising them. And the principle behind this is that whatever we're doing, we're constantly working on a bunch of different projects and we're trying to improve various different aspects of our lives. And you'll probably find that if you ever try to work on just one area of your life or just focus on one project, that's super mentally exhausting. It's such a heavy lift trying to focus on that one thing. So organising our notes into the different things that we're thinking about and working on helps to promote a slow burn, where our intellectual effort and stress is spread out over time. This means we shouldn't plan to do hard work all at once, as that is super stressful and overwhelming. Instead, we should spread our focus and efforts into several projects where we're gradually working on each of them. Then, when it's time to actually share our ideas or to write that essay or to build that website, we're starting from abundance because we've been thinking about that thing for the last few days, weeks, months, or even years in some cases. So sharing our ideas and writing stuff down and, being productive is easy because we've got a whole heap of notes on that thing already. Okay, so what does this look like in practice? Well, I use something known as the POWER framework, which stands for Projects, Areas, Resources, and Archive. And this is basically how all my notes are structured in Apple Notes. Firstly, we've got projects. Now, these are the folders containing my highest level of notes, and they're basically any note linked to a goal that I'm trying to achieve with a fixed deadline. For example, I've got notes linked to a project called writing a blog post on X, or create a website mockup for Y, and things like that. So anything along those lines will become a project folder. And then the point of this is that we want to write our notes to be as actionable as possible. So projects force us to create notes that will genuinely help us to achieve our short-term goals. Secondly, here we've got areas. Now, these folders are far broader, containing notes on broader spheres of activity we want to maintain over time. Like, they don't typically have a deadline, but they're areas of life that we want to improve. So things like, finances, health, writing, and things like that. Thirdly, we've got resources. Now, for me at least, a resource isn't exactly a note or something that I want to learn, but it's an important snippet of information that I want to keep safe. So, for example, it could be an interesting anecdote that I found, or an interesting story. It could be a booking, or it could be where I store all my personal goals for the next year. And finally, we've got archive. Now, basically, any inactive note from the other three categories can be dumped in the archive folder. So if you're no longer committed to a certain area, or if there's a resource that you no longer need, it can be just put straight into this folder. Again, you may find a better way of doing this, but this is what works well for me. At this point, our second brain is shaping up nicely. We've captured a whole bunch of useful information and organised it nicely within whatever app we're using. But we still need to do something useful with the notes that we've taken, and this leads us on to Distill. Now, all this means is that we're going to take all the information that we've written and turn it into something that we can use for our benefit. And the main tool that I use to do this is something known as progressive summarization. In short, we want to make our life easier for our future self by breaking down each note into its most essential elements. And there are 3 steps that I use to do this. Firstly, delete everything from that note that isn't interesting, surprising, or just doesn't resonate with us at all. We just want to keep the stuff that's actually going to be useful for our future self. Sometimes you may find that a note is way too long, and you can break those notes down into 2 or more separate notes. But largely, we're just trying to get our note to a stage where we're left with the most essential and important pieces of information. Secondly, highlight and bold all the main points in the note itself. Now, this won't help us remember any of that information, but next time we come back to that note, it'll be really quick and easy to scan so we can pull out all the main points that we were trying to make. And finally, summarize the entire note in our own words. So every time we come back to that note, we got a really clear and concise sentence or 2 about what that note is all about. Don't get too bogged down trying to do this for every single note, like that was going to take you literally forever, but do try to do it every now and again, especially for those notes that you visit quite a lot. And I also don't typically do this 3-step process all in one go. I tend to do little bits of summarization every now and again. So sometimes I'll bold some things, sometimes I'll delete some stuff, other times I'll rearrange it. And so every time I visit that note, it's gradually becoming better, more concise, and more useful for my future self. The final and perhaps most important step then is to express. So once we've captured all our ideas and organized them nicely in our second brain, we now need to actually begin sharing them with the world. And this allows us to get feedback, to collaborate with others, and actually create something meaningful from all the information that we've collected. You see, without expressing our ideas, they're essentially useless. So it's really important we find a way of sharing our creativity with others. So, for example, let's say I'm making a YouTube video. Very often I'll have a whole set of notes on that particular topic before I begin sharing it with the world. So it makes it really, really easy to recycle those ideas and turn them into a video. And then when I release that video, I get a whole ton of feedback from various people, and I can use that feedback and improve those notes. And basically my ideas just get better and better over time. Like, I recently made a video on time management, which you can see somewhere over here, but this video really wasn't that difficult to put together because over the last few months I've been collecting various different articles, books, quotes, and snippets of information that I found useful on time management and put it directly into my second brain. I didn't really have any intention of turning that stuff into a video, but hey, I thought I have the information anyway, so why not make it into something useful that I can share with the world? The fact I'd already captured, organised and distilled my thoughts on time management meant it was incredibly easy to then express those ideas in the form of a YouTube video. Anyway, if you're ready to begin building your very own second brain, then make sure you check out my free Notion template I've left below this video. That's it for now, and I shall see you soon. Goodbye.